Good afternoon, friends. We have reached rivalry week, week 14, the final regular season week. And I was just telling Dan, I went and looked because of our new lottery system. Every single matchup this week is playing for something. As I mentioned, with me as always, already looking defeated, already sounding defeated. Daniel Metzger, Dancing Squirrels. How are you doing tonight? Or how are you doing today, buddy?
Terrible. Don't know why I'm here.
You're not even out yet. You're supposed to be
I'm
this
out.
mad on next week's podcast.
Listen, let's just get it. A loss is happening this week. Let's just why act like it? I've had too many times where I think I'm gonna win and it just doesn't happen. Have to watch my favorite players beat me.
Yeah, you called that one perfectly. By the way,
I knew what was coming. Come on, these guys worked overtime to make sure that happened.
Yeah,
out here giving him late touchdowns for the Rams for both his guys on at Sunday evening just to watch me cry Monday night.
I don't know how we're gonna divvy it up, but because of the shit I gave him this season and the vitriol he is throwing to me in the group chat, I think me and Kenny have to be rivals next year. So I may have to like flip things up a little bit because I feel like Kenny in his bones dislikes me this year, and he has every right to. I don't think I've picked him to win a single week this season, and I've been shitting on his team throughout. So I just loved that immediately when he didn't even technically have the game locked up yet, he just puts in the group chat, "Eat shit, Ryan." And I just thought that was perfect because I certainly deserved it. So you made a prediction. I got called out in the group chat. It was a very, very interesting week 13, which with that, let me go ahead and throw the standings up on the screen. So I, of course, don't have them scrolled to the right spot. Those are your top 7 teams. Dan down there in 7th place, just out of the playoffs in total points. Right now, Phil is in on total points. But like I said, the way the matchups line up this week, every single person still has a chance. Let's just get into it, Dan. So I'm going to start with, I tried to break this down for least important to most important, but honestly, every single one of them is important. And I am going to get us started with Darren versus Eric. Darren sitting at 12-1. Eric sitting at 5-8. I'll break down the playoff implications after I scroll through, let you guys take a look at the lineup. Now, it is to be noted that Eric just lost Christian Watson. I don't know that it's going to matter much. Scroll back up here to the top, leave some of the players on the screen. So here's what I have for this matchup, Dan. Darren with a win. He's already the 1 seed. It's not going to change. Ties Phil for the best record in league history, a record that was just set last year, 13-1. Eric needs a win here to beat a playoff team, which would earn him a point in the lottery. It would also, because he is at an odd number of wins right now, bring him up for another point in the lottery because it would get him to 6 wins for the 6 divided by 2 thing. So a win here for Eric gains him 2 points in the lottery. Eric can also get a point if Phil makes the playoffs because he beat Phil and then Phil would be a playoff team. But he should be shooting for a win here because that's 2 points in the lottery. Unfortunately, Dan, when I look this over, boat race. I have Eric winning tight end because I love Sam Laporta. I have Darren winning every other position. I am taking Darren in this matchup.
Yeah, Darren's going to win this pretty easily. I'm going to call a 40-point victory.
Whew. I did want to note, Dan, and I forgot to mention it, even with our weird picks last week, we both went 4-3, so I'm a game behind you in the game right now. You have 56 wins. I have 55 wins.
All the teams you pick the rest of the season.
You're just going to do just to make sure you win?
I got to win something this year.
I love it. I did want to ask you, just looking at Darren's team, and I'm going to scroll his lineup a little bit here. So Jalen Hurts, Joe Mixon, DeAndre Swift, Cortland Sutton, Tyreek Hill, Jake Ferguson, Raheem Mostert, and then the defense and special teams, which nobody cares about. Devin Singletary on the bench, Kenneth Walker on the bench, stacking defenses down there. But I want to ask you, Dan, for the long run of Darren's team, any negative impacts to losing Christian Kirk for the rest of the season?
No, he'll be fine.
I kind of felt the same way. Singletary does seem to be ceding his job back to Dameon Pierce. So some of his bench depth is going away, but the long and short of it is his starting lineup is just so good, and he still has Kenneth Walker down there. And once he is not carrying multiple defenses, there's probably wide receivers out there that he can go ahead and grab. So.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing: Hill and Hurts carry him. And as long as he has those two,
and Joe Mixon has been playing so well lately. So
as long as he has those two, I really think that he can match up with anybody in the league.
And we do have Taylor in the chat. How you doing there, brother? Haven't even got to your team yet. You joined us at a good time. This is still the first game we're covering. So let's go ahead and move on to the second game. Oh, what do you know? It literally happens to be Taylor versus Stevie. So Stevie sitting at 4 wins. Taylor sitting at 8 wins. I'm going to do a little scroll here. So anybody watching, if they want to take a look at the matchup that's going on. And go back to my notes. Dan, I'm going to let you talk about this one first, but I do want to give you the game notes that I have. So there's nothing really to gain or lose for Taylor. There is a set of weird circumstances where Taylor could steal the bye, but it would be fucking incredible. He would need to win, have me and Horvath lose, and then outscore us by a pretty enormous amount, specifically Horvath, to jump up and steal the bye. I think Taylor is pretty well locked in to the 4 or 5. Stevie needs a win here or needs you or Terry to make the playoffs to get that crucial beat a team that makes the playoffs. So he has not beat a team that's made the playoffs yet. So he is going to need that win here. Dan, what do you got?
I'm going to say 2 things. 1, I think Taylor wins. 2, if Jamar Chase doesn't score 20-some points again, I'm going to be super mad.
Who do they have this week? Why am I blanking?
Colts.
They should. Wide receivers have been eating the Colts up a little bit. I think it's another big Jamar Chase week. As a Bengals fan, how do you feel about Jake Browning right now? I'm pretty impressed. I did not realize how old he was. He came in like 2019 and just really hasn't played. He's like 27 years old right now.
He's 27. He had that shoulder injury in college, which kind of really hindered him. I'm not surprised completely because, I mean, he came into college with high expectations, a 5-star quarterback, numbers he put up before in college with that before the injury. Maybe just letting it heal for long enough. It's finally gotten better. He's learned more of the mental side of the game. Based on how I saw him play the first game, I wasn't expecting that much of a jump from him as much as he provided. Pretty impressive. And I'm a big Bengals fan, and it just watching Jamar run down that ball just was not fun. Knowing what Taylor, I was hoping somehow he'd get tripped up so he wouldn't get in the end zone, but it is what it is.
Yeah, that was crazy. But yeah, big win for you guys too. So I have Taylor winning the matchup. I will say, going through and breaking it down, crazy even matchup. I think Taylor has a slight advantage at quarterback and flex, which I do want to talk about. He does need Jaden Reed to be mid, which could be a little bit of a problem for him because Christian Watson was just announced out. Najee Harris let him down on Thursday. That was a rough start there. But Dan, I want to just put you to the quiz here, if you will, or not really a quiz, but just your thoughts on this. We've kind of given Taylor a hard time throughout most of the season for having these two very good quarterbacks. This week, Tua versus Fields. Fields gets Detroit, who I guess someone told me 3 of his 4 best rushing games in his career have all come against Detroit. Like every 100-yard game he has is against Detroit. How do we feel about starting Tua Tagovailoa over Justin Fields this week?
I was just going with the assumption he just hasn't updated his lineup and he's going to put Fields in. I would absolutely play Fields over Tua.
I say because Tua has Tennessee. It's not like it's a bad matchup, and he has them in Miami on Monday night. The drama of it having a player on Monday night. So you would go Fields in this situation?
Yeah, absolutely. Detroit's defense has been up a ton of points. I would definitely go Fields, but
I mean, Taylor, whatever happens now, if he changes or doesn't change it, he's going to find it a way for it to be our fault that this happened. But I agree with you. So far, we're 2 for 2. I have Taylor winning this matchup. So next up on my list, I have JR versus Kenny. JR sitting at 8 wins. Kenny sitting at 3. Do a quick scroll of the lineups here. Another interesting matchup. Like I said, I do our first year of the draft lottery, Dan. I am pretty happy to say that every single matchup has something somebody is playing for. This one's pretty enormous for Kenny because while Kenny is second to last in the league, it has not worked out to many luck points in the lottery for him. Now, that doesn't necessarily matter. When we ran this last year, Darren had 0 luck and he did win one of the races. So there's a chance Kenny still walks away with a high pick in this draft. So
I have lots of luck and he has my first round pick. So he'll probably.
Well, there you go. JR and Taylor are essentially in the same situation. So there's not a lot to play here for them, but there is a chance they get the seeding to get the second seed. Plus, if you get the third seed, you get to avoid Darren's side of the bracket, which is, I think, what we're all shooting for right now. Kenny needs a win here, or Mott's or Terry to make the playoffs. So a little different for Kenny and Stevie, where Stevie needs you or Terry to make the playoffs. Kenny needs Mott's or Terry to make the playoffs. But a win here, again, Kenny sitting at 3 wins gets him another point in the lottery for the luck contest, for the wins category. I'll get us started on this one. I actually have Kenny pulling out the upset. First time I think I may have picked his team all season long. He's been giving me shit the whole time. This is probably going to jinx him. But I went in and looked. Everything, I think he's getting hot at the right time. The wide receivers in this matchup feel like a wash to me. But while JR wins running back, I think Kenny wins quarterback. But I also think he wins IDP. I do not like Matt Stafford this week. I think Browning has another big week. However, we have 2 of the best IDPs facing off, and TJ Watt had a mediocre Thursday night, whereas Parsons gets Philadelphia, who has been giving up sacks and turnovers. I think we could see a matchup where IDP makes a big difference here. A caveat being San Francisco not going off from JR's defense spot, Dan. So I'm going to pick Kenny to win this matchup.
I've tossed it back and forth on this specific. I think it's going to be a really close game. The fact that you're picking Kenny and the fact that you bashed him all year, it feels like you're just trying to reverse jinx him at this point. So I'm just going to take JR on the fact of I think you're trying to hurt Kenny at this point.
Where the matchups take me is where I go. And when I did the game, I went ahead and it went to Kenny. I do want to throw back a little bit. Sorry, I'm in between my show sheet, so I see these comments a little late. Taylor's not afraid of Darren. He's ready to be our first ever. 17 years, we've never had a back-to-back champion. So Taylor trying to give that a run. I did want to give JR a little bit of credit for not falling for the Jaylen Warren trap. I'm in a lot of leagues, Dan, where we're getting to the final week and nobody played anybody from that Thursday game. That's how nobody wanted to touch that game. And obviously the Patriots had a hell of a game. And I just can't imagine they were started by many people. Ezekiel Elliott was benched in our league for a 22-point game. A lot of people thought Jaylen Warren was going to have a good week. JR did not fall for that. Only 5 points sitting on his bench. So a nice little lineup call out there for JR. But again, I think it's going to be good enough for Kenny to pull this off. This matchup, super interesting. Rob versus Greg. Both teams sitting at 6 wins. The winner of this game statistically has a chance at the playoffs. The loser does not. It's not a win and you're in situation. It is a win and you have the best chance. Looking at it, obviously, there's the playoff matchups. Oh, and then for anybody who's playing for the playoffs, I didn't really do the lottery part of it. I will figure that out later. Here's what Rob and Greg need to have happen for their. Obviously, they each need to win. Greg also needs Phil and you to lose, Dan. And he has to beat Terry by 3 points, assuming Terry wins his matchup. Motts needs to win and have every other 6-win team lose. He's not going to catch anybody on points. And then we'll obviously need to talk about, again, Greg, I know you don't watch the show. I hope you're okay. I know for a fact you have not set a lineup since week 10. It breaks my heart. Dan, we got to discuss what the fuck we're going to do. This dude makes the playoffs. So I'll let you get us start us on the matchup. What do you think is going to happen here?
I actually got Greg winning this one.
I also have Greg winning this one, Dan. What the fuck? And I don't mean that for our stupid game. I mean that for the conundrum he's about to put the league in. But I'll let you talk about the matchup.
I hope this dude wins that championship, doesn't even know it.
Yeah. Fucking disgusting. Fucking disgusting. I just realized I didn't scroll the matchup. So while you're talking, I'll scroll.
No, I think he's in a good spot to win this week. I like some of his players' matchups. Rob's not off to a good start with the guys he's already played this week, but I think Greg pulls it out. Yeah,
obviously we've been doing this for 3 months now. Our notes are going to sound very similar, but that's basically what I have in my notes as well. I have this matchup as even at every position except for defense, I think Baltimore smashes this week, and then such a bad week for Rob to get a small amount out of his tight end and then another small amount out of his defense. And then I did want to look at Rob's team. There's one matchup I find interesting here, Dan. And I know Rob's been fighting this battle all season long. Khalil Herbert, Roschon Johnson. With us being a PPR league, from what I saw from Roschon Johnson in week 12 before their bye, I have a feeling he's going to be more involved in this game. Who would you start in that situation?
Oh, man. That's a tough call. I have to look more into.
I was going to say, I'm going to bring up Khalil Herbert. So obviously he missed some time. Oh, is it not going to let me scroll? That's weird. Okay, there we go. It was just messing up. So looking at Khalil Herbert's last few games, 4 points in each of his last 2 games. Looks like, I don't know what all these columns mean. 35 rushing yards, 24 rushing yards, mildly involved in the passing game. But then when you go to Roschon Johnson, I know he had a pretty good week before the bye. Last couple games, obviously, Khalil was out 6 points 3 weeks ago, 2 points, but then 9.3 on the bye week.
I would go Johnson personally. I'm interested to see what Rob does if
Travis Etienne?
No, his other quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, plays.
If Lawrence plays.
Does he keep Minshew against Cincinnati, or does he go Lawrence against Cleveland's defense? I would probably go Minshew.
If he reads my stream of the week, he's going Gardner Minshew. Keep in mind, my stream of the week has been a terrible jinx for like the last month, so he's about to have the worst fucking day of his life.
I can assure you he's not reading it.
I know he's not.
I can pretty much assure you he's not even watching the show.
He used to say at the gym he would find his part of the show, and that's all he would pay attention to is the part where we talk about him. Conceited bastard.
Wow, Rob. Wow. I hope he has to take him like 3 times to find the exact spot and maybe gets 3 more views for us.
There you go. All right. Next up for me, we have Phil versus Rob P. Tough season for Rob P, plain and simple. Most points against, which is going to end up earning him a point in the lottery. Phil's sitting at 6 wins, and Phil is essentially win and he's in. He has everybody beat by total points by a pretty good margin. Scrolling the matchup here, George Pickens went on Thursday night, 5 catches for 19 yards. They were just not able to get the ball downfield in that matchup. I'll go ahead and get us started on this one, but first let me talk about the game. I already said the Phil is winning a year in. Rob P needs a win in this match, but that still does not get him because a win in this match could knock Phil out of the playoffs, likely knocks Phil out of the playoffs. So he needs a win in this match, but then he beat you earlier in the season, Dan, so he needs you to claim that playoff spot, but he is another one with an odd amount of wins right now. So a win here gets him another point in the lottery. Plus, if you get into the playoffs, that gets him a second point in the lottery. So again, every game is a win and you get something sort of matchup here. I have Phil pulling this one out. It was way closer than what I expected it to be. To be honest, by the time I did this, I ended up having to go through it 3 different times. I think this might actually come down to Foyesade Oluokun versus Aiden Hutchinson at the IDP. I'm going to bet on tackles instead of sacks. But if Hutch has a big week taking on Justin Fields, this could be Rob P throwing a monkey wrench into all of the playoff plans. But I am going to go Phil here. And obviously that means Phil is claiming the 6th playoff spot in my bracket. Dan.
It absolutely breaks my heart that I have to sit here and hope that somehow Rob, who just lost to a guy who didn't set a lineup and had 4 zeros in his lineup, is going to come back and beat Phil. But Dak Prescott is due for a terrible game, and it just has to happen this week. The rest of Phil's matchups aren't really great either. So I'm going with Rob. I hope he can pull it out for me. All I got, man, is I got hope.
Yeah, we certainly have some differences. Another one where I want to question you, Dan. I want to do more of this because I want to give us the ability to talk some fantasy football. Adam Thielen versus Jacoby Myers. Thielen obviously super hot to begin the season and got Phil a big point of where he is. Phil with the 2nd most points scored in the league, but in 6th place fighting for his playoff life. However, Thielen has taken a huge dip lately, as has that entire Carolina offense. They seem to be throwing to Jonathan Mingo a little bit more. Myers has been really hit or miss, but has a really nice matchup with the Vikings. Who would you start in that situation, Dan?
I would start Myers. I think Phil has the right lineup in there right now.
Yeah, I was torn with these two. Thielen's been so bad as of late. I've benched him everywhere I have him. So I also would go with Myers in this situation.
At this point, you could probably cut Thielen. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I mean, perfectly honest. He's certainly not a keeper. So it's not someone you have to worry about anyone else going and grabbing.
Speaking of not a keeper, George Pickens.
Keeper George?
not so much.
Yeah, definitely not a
if Brian wouldn't have quit the league in the summer, he definitely would have killed after keeping Keeper George.
Yeah, it certainly did not work out the way Brian thought it was going to work out. Quarterback situation looking mad ugly in Pittsburgh. Mitch Trubisky getting booed the entire game and still not benched at any point, which was interesting. Dan, I, of course, had to save us for last. So Horvath versus Terry. Horvath sitting at 9 wins. Big game for Horvath because if he wins, he gets the bye week. So that's extremely important for him. Terry is, again, a 6-win team. So he needs a win, but he also needs Phil to lose and for you to lose or not score so many points ahead of him. So what I have here is a win gets Horvath the bye as long as I don't outscore Horvath by 53 points, I think it is. Terry needs a win and Phil and Metzger to lose. Plus, he has to beat Greg by 3 points or just a Greg loss. So there's a lot going on here. It's certainly not a win and in situation for Terry. Go ahead and get us started on this one, Dan.
I'm taking Horvath. I just have at this point no trust for Herbert whatsoever. And that it's not really. I don't even blame him. I think it's more about that team and the coaches and what they're trying to do. I think the Kellen Moore experiment's been a complete failure. I expect that coach to be fired promptly after their last game of the season on January 2nd.
When you say you expect the coach to be fired, you expect Kellen Moore to be fired, or you expect Brandon Staley to be fired?
Will be fired, okay. But Kellen Moore will go with him because whoever comes in is going to want a real offensive coordinator.
So I have heard Belichick to the Chargers is like the big rumor that's going on right now. I think that would be interesting, and I don't think he would keep Kellen Moore there. So.
No, I don't think that would happen at all. I don't think Belichick goes anywhere. I think he'll retire a Patriot.
Interesting.
Yeah, they're talking about Eckler taking a smaller role in the running game. I have him in another league. I need him to do well, so I was really disappointed to hear. Jonathan Taylor is my other running back in that league, so not great times for the running back position for me over there. But I can't trust either of those two Chargers that he has. Just from a football standpoint, I'm interested to see what the Chargers do because I think Herbert's a good quarterback. Just with better coaching, what he could really develop into hopefully next year. I'll tell you what, next year, if he has the same up and downs next year, then I think
I'll give him a pass next year because he's likely to be in a new offense again. But I do think Brandon Staley was not the right hire when you go out and get a quarterback like Justin Herbert. I think we're on the same page with that one. Did you pick a winner here?
Yeah, that's more bad because I don't trust.
Oh, that's right, because you don't trust Herbert. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I do not trust Herbert or Eckler. Eckler's on my shit list right now. So when I was looking at this matchup, I went through it benefited Horvath greatly. I even had it that it should actually be a big win for Horvath locking up the bye. I think he has a big advantage at wide receiver, and that's probably going to be the thing that wins this matchup by a hefty amount. And then that's not even to mention if Terry's running backs go out and have a bad game as well. But like you have Amari Cooper who's hurt, may not play, DeAndre Hopkins, and then Chuba Hubbard at the flex, whereas Horvath has CD fucking Lamb at the flex, Calvin Ridley, who is now a number 1 wide receiver, and gets Justin Jefferson back on a week where it doesn't matter. So he gets to kind of see what he has out of Justin Jefferson. So,
when I was doing my notes, I just wrote advantage team for Horvath.
There you go. Well, like I said, I did have it as a big win. So, and Dan, that brings us to what everybody tuned in for. We know this is what they're here for. I'm sitting at 9 wins. You, my friend, are sitting at 6. Obviously not a win and in situation for you. So I mentioned this to you off the air. I'm going to mention to everybody on the air now. If you look at the league document, I have the best 3 through 7 year runs tracked. And if I beat Dan this week, I steal the best 5-year run in league history from Dan by 1 game. So as of right now, we're tied and I can take it with this one. So that's enormous. I am also playing for the possibility of a bye. I need a win and a Horvath loss, or I need to score more than 53 points than Horvath. Unlikely to happen. Dan, you need a win and a Phil loss. I think that's pretty much how it breaks down for you to get into the playoffs. I'll go first. When I broke this matchup down, I have myself winning. I I think Christian McCaffrey is in for a monster week against Seattle, something we've already seen from him just a few weeks ago. What did I have in my game? So the RB advantage protects me from your wide receiver advantage. Plus, Michael Pittman has stepped up and really looked like a great fantasy wide receiver. That touchdown from Deontay Johnson that we talked about, Dan, saved me. I do need Puka Nacua and Chris Olave to not have the monster weeks that they've been having lately. Obviously, Nacua turned on another gear last week. He really seems to be stealing that wide receiver one role from a older, injured Cooper Kupp to the point where Cooper Kupp isn't even starting on Taylor's team right now. Chris Olave looks like a monster, but the quarterback situation in New Orleans is concerning. It seems like whoever's the quarterback there wants to get him involved. I would like to see some bad weeks from them, but I think my RB advantage, specifically Christian McCaffrey, is enough for me to take the win here.
Yeah, this week is going to hurt on a lot of different levels. I'm going to pick you to win, so you'll pass me on the thing. And also in the league documents, this will drop me to behind Lures again. I'll go from first down to second in that as well.
Oh, no, I didn't even realize that.
Oh, yeah. Trust me. And I'll obviously won't not make the playoffs. It just hurts. Everything just hurts. All I feel is pain. I hate this.
I say next week.
The worst thing is I'm super competitive.
Yes, you are.
This is the only competitive thing we do nowadays at our old age. Yep. I really just want to get everybody together. Let's go play some flag football. I need to do something else competitive that I have some control over because this sucks. It hurts. I'm gonna be in a bad mood Sunday.
And when you think about the life that all of our friends are in now, you're probably, with you being a hockey coach and just still involved with all your kids and everything, you're probably in the best shape out of all of us. You could probably dominate some flag football. It's too bad we don't do that anymore.
Yeah, I'll do anything, guys. Flag football, football.
Call this man. He needs you. So
let's play some basketball, guys. Come on. I work at a school. I got a key. Let's go.
So Dan, looking at your picked winners in your scenario, Greg makes the playoffs.
Yep.
Because you have every other 6-win team losing, so Greg gets in. So I'm going to break down my scenario. I have Darren and Horvath getting the bye. Let me get the standings back up here. Actually, probably throw the playoff bracket up because my playoff bracket is the current playoff bracket. Horvath. Yeah, this is actually the exact bracket that I think is going to end up. There may be some small flips in seeding. But I have Darren and Horvath getting the bye. I have myself taking on Phil. I have JR taking on Taylor. I have myself beating Phil. I have Taylor beating JR. I have Darren beating Taylor, me beating Horvath, Darren beating me. Darren is still my champion as of now. I just don't see a scenario where Darren loses. Dan, I believe in your scenario, it would shake out exactly like this, except Phil would – Greg would be where Phil is. So it would be me versus Greg, JR versus Taylor. How do you see everything shaking out, obviously, in a very early playoff preview?
Oh, I think it comes down to a championship of Horvath and Darren.
You think the bye week's right out?
I think those two have the best rosters. I think those two have been showing it all season. Horvath's team, I think, is peaking at the right time. The luck's finally turned his way.
Certainly.
So that's how I feel about it.
All right. I don't think there's any point in arguing. Taylor, I'm not sure if you're still watching. Oh, Taylor says he wants to do a flag football hood bowl. So you guys obviously say you guys need to talk.
I tried this like a year or two ago, and I got told no by Terry's always in.
Yeah.
And everyone else is like, no.
Taylor's definitely predicting that back-to-back. Taylor, you know the game at this point if you want to start getting your quarterback and your flex play lined up. Guys, we're going to continue with the game. Dan, you needed a win, and you got one last week. It's not the win you wanted, but you got 40 points out of your picks last week. I believe it was your quarterback that really saved you. Or no, Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill carried you. Me and Horvath leaned on Bijan Robinson. Did not work out real well. You got 40. Horvath got 31. I got 26. Dan, that is your 7th win in the game this season. So you have certainly dominated the game. I have 3 wins. Horvath has 1. Taylor has 1. Phil has 1. Dan, I know you're going to make me go first unless this week is changing.
Nope.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm going to take Lamar Jackson. I think I mentioned it before. I think Baltimore is going to have a monster week with the Rams coming to town. They're coming off that bye. I think Lamar Jackson's going to have himself a great week. Zay Flowers, Isaiah Likely. The Rams give up a ton of points to tight ends. We could finally see an Isaiah Likely breakout. So give me Lamar Jackson. And as I mentioned, give me Christian McCaffrey. While I'm talking about that, I'm going to go bring Christian McCaffrey up because he just had a game against these Seahawks a few weeks ago and scored 28.8 fantasy points in our league, scoring with a 2-touchdown game. So I think it's going to be another monster week against the Seahawks for Christian McCaffrey. I'm going to take Lamar Jackson and Christian McCaffrey. Dan.
I am going to go with Justin Fields.
Just take the same players as Taylor.
Oh, I wasn't watching. What did he pick?
Taylor just took Fields and Chase because obviously.
Okay, that's cool. I'll change mine then. I will go Jordan Love then.
What? Oh, you're changing everything.
Oh yeah. Screw that. He can have Fields if he got it in there for me. That's fine. I'll take Jordan Love.
Jordan Love.
And let me see one thing. Justin Jefferson.
And J. Jeff. You want to talk about him a little bit?
I mean, like I say, he's coming off. This will be his first game back. I do expect some rust. We're gonna see how the quarterback situation plays out there. But I think they're going to probably get him the ball a little bit, get him going again. They're trying to make the playoffs themselves.
Jordan Love, red hot lately. Multiple touchdowns in each of his last 4 games.
Yeah, he's looked great lately. They're going against the terrible Giants. So he could have potentially a big game. And if you kind of pay attention to any actual NFL expert, they think that Jordan Love has looked phenomenal these last 6 weeks. And so maybe he's turned it around. So it makes me feel better about, getting him at the beginning of the year. Not that it helped because I needed those points when he was getting negative points. Yeah. But, take pride in what you can take pride in because my record ain't going to get me there.
That's really interesting. Jordan Love had the week 6 bye, had a 2-touchdown game against Denver coming out of that bye. Pretty mediocre game against the Vikings, 229 yards and a touchdown. But that started a streak where he has been over 225 yards every single game since then. And then, as I mentioned, multiple touchdowns in each of his last 4 weeks, 3 touchdowns in each of the last 2 weeks, and gets a Giants team that gives up a lot of points to the quarterback. So I think that's not a bad call whatsoever, Dan. So,
I'm nervous. I'm nervous about Christian Watson being out. But they have other good receivers there. And you don't need great receivers when you play the Giants. So
that other rookie they have, I believe he was taken in the 5th or 6th round, Dontavian Wicks, has played quite well. So you have Romeo Doubs, who's been a possession monster. You have Jaden Reed, who is playing very well in the red zone. This is a high praise I'm about to give him because I know he's viewed more as a slot wide receiver. In the red zone, he reminds me a little bit of Amon-Ra St. Brown because Amon-Ra St. Brown is not a huge guy, but gets open in the red zone. And that's what we're seeing a lot out of Jaden Reed. And then Dontavian Wicks, I think, could slide in and take over for Christian Watson. But Watson, responsible for 3 of those touchdowns in the last 2 weeks? That's obviously very big. So,
but no, I think Jordan Love's looked really good. So I feel good about that pick.
Well, there you go. Dan, I'm rooting
for lots of victories this weekend.
Yeah. I am rooting for 2 people this week, Dan. I'm obviously rooting for the part-time ninjas. I'm rooting for Patrick Mahomes to get his shit together. But I'm also rooting for Terry Wagner as much as I'm rooting for anybody. Not just because I want the bye week, but I'm rooting for you, Greg, or you, Phil, or Terry, to keep Greg out of the playoffs. So, Greg, you have turned into my arch nemesis for not setting a lineup for the month. So fuck you, Greg, and fuck you, Dan. Any parting words for our friends?
I love you guys, and I can't wait for the off season.
It's almost here. Stay tuned next week where Dan is even more depressed. Thank you guys. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend, except for Dan and except for Horvath. Everybody else, have a great one.
It's not going to take much.